I think it's up to us to recognize the opportunities. We have, for the first time, something we are facing as a planet. There's no them and us. We're in this together. We are molding and we are forming that world through the choices that we make right now.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you're worried, scared, or confused during this interesting time, then do we have the show for you. Today I'll be talking with Gregg Braden, New York Times bestselling author, scientist, 2020 Templeton Prize nominee, winner of the 2019 Conscience Visionary Award from the Illuminate Film Festival, and the author of the upcoming book. Today we're at an unprecedented time, facing unprecedented challenges, and that's what I want to talk with him about today. About what in the world is COVID-19, what we need to know to protect ourselves, and what this means for the evolution of humanity. So welcome back to the show, Gregg. Are you ready to shine?
Michael, you just covered a lot of ground, and I think you set a pretty high bar for this program today. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me back. And my sense is our time together is going by very quickly. My brother, I'm going to follow your lead, but I want to begin just by thanking you for all that you're doing to stay in touch with our community, always, and especially now, during this unprecedented experience. We've never seen an entire planet go through an experience simultaneously the way we are. There's no them and us, there's only a we. And thank you for keeping us plugged in to what we need to get through this, not just to get through it, but to get through it in a healthy way. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. It goes both ways, my brother, and we are one. And one of the things that I like, and we're going to dive into the first question here in a second, is humanity. If there's one thing that we do well at, is if something is taken away from us, we want it more. So the whole social distancing, I'm convinced, is the best thing in the world for humanity. It's going to bring us closer together after we get through this. With that said, I usually have a question set up, ready to go, and it was going to be on telling us about the normalcy bias, which I'll get to in a minute. But I was brushing my teeth, and as that happens before the show, a new question often pops up. And this question, I wasn't sure if I should go there or not, but Jessica, my wife, she said, Gregg can handle it. He'll know where to go with this. So instead of the normalcy bias, where in the world are we going as a species, Gregg?
So I'm going to begin. I think a lot of our viewers may be familiar with my background. I'm a scientist. I'm a degreed geologist. I am not a biologist.
Yep.
But I have a strong background in the life sciences. I was a marine biologist before I became a marine geologist, before I became a terrestrial geologist. And I say that because it's given me the skills to follow the scientific community and the scientific communications around what is happening right now. So it helps me to separate truth from fiction.
Yep.
There's a lot of false information out there. And I want to begin right now just by saying that I am an optimist and I'm also a realist. And I am both optimistically and realistically encouraged, very optimistic about our future and what is happening here. And the reason is because we're made for times just like this. Our bodies are literally designed not just to survive, but to thrive and adapt. We have everything that we need to thrive and adapt in times like these. Our job is to give our bodies what they need so they can do what they were designed to do. And where we find ourselves not doing that, to get out of the way, excuse me, and recognize these things so we can support our bodies. And I think that is going to be a part of what we're going to see changing as we come out of the experience, the lockdown that we're in right now. We don't know what is about to happen, Michael, but what I can tell you is that there are people who believe that once the restrictions are lifted, life goes back immediately to the world and the life that we knew before.
No.
I think they're going to be surprised. We can't go back because that world no longer exists. We cannot go back to a world that no longer exists. We now are defining through the choices we make right now, today, what the emerging world will look like. It doesn't exist yet. And that's the beauty. We are molding and we are forming that world through the choices that we make right now. Some of those choices are conscious, some are unconscious, some are individual, some are collective. I believe we're going to see a more localized world emerge. We were on a fast track of globalism for a very long time. And there are some things that will continue to be global, like digital communication. We are obviously globally connected as a family. But we have to use good common sense. And there are places where that simply doesn't make sense. So I believe that we're looking at a world, and as a scientist, I tend to look at it short term and long term. Short term, 6 months or less, long term, 6 months and beyond. I think both what we're going to see short term is we're going to recognize that the unsustainable nature of certain aspects of our lives, and that will lead to the long-term changes of more sustainable ways of living. One of those is localized living. And I think what we'll find is that we move more toward a localized society in terms of localized sources of energy, localized sources of food, localized sources of medications and the things that we need to keep us healthy, a more localized economy, because we're seeing how vulnerable and how fragile the supply chains are that connect us with a factory on the other side of the planet, and all of the modes of transportation that the vital resources we need have to go through to get to us. And when those aren't there, we don't have them. And one of the places that we're seeing this is with medications. What we found in the United States is the estimates are as much as 80% of the raw ingredients that we need to create the medications are sourced from other countries. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not judging the past. It served us to be where we are now. And we are recognizing that there's a vulnerability. And I think you're going to see that change pretty quickly in terms of our food, where our food comes from. We're accustomed to eating the same food year round, even when it's out of season. It is brought to us from other parts of the world where it is in season.
Yep.
And I think we're going to see things like that change, relying more on farm to table and localized forms of living. I know you live in a rural community just north of where I am. I'm in northern New Mexico in a rural community, and we're already seeing some of these things in our communities. But I think you're going to see them on a larger scale. So logistically, I see those changes. Socially, I think we're going to see a lot of changes because events like this have always created the changes. Those of you watching who remember the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s, when it first came out, it forever changed social interactions. It changed sex. It changed the way that people interact. It changed society. I think we're going to see changes in the way that people gather, in the way that people are comfortable gathering, in the way that we care for one another. And I just want to be really clear on something. We're being asked to have social distancing, but it does not mean social isolation.
Thank you.
And I think that's one of the keys. And if there is a blessing that we can find in this global pandemic, if you're going to have a global pandemic, I can't think of a better time than in a technological age, when we have the ability to remain connected, just like we're doing right now. Even though we aren't physically in the presence of one another. I think you're going to see a move to a lot more of that by preference, not by necessity. But I think people are going to choose to hold more events online and to have more, more of this kind of interaction. But I'm just going to invite our viewers, if you haven't already, reach out to vulnerable members of our society, to maybe people who are a little older that don't get out. If they are plugged into Facebook or something like that, check in with them, see how they're doing, see what they need. And we have the ability to do that now. We're doing that with neighbors, and you can get what they need and leave it in a package on their front porch. You don't even have to see them. You don't even have to touch them. But sometimes they're reluctant to reach out. And this technology gives us the ability to do that. So I think we're going to be better people. I think we're going to have a better world because of what's happening, and we're going through a tough time to get to that place. Long answer to a short question.
It wasn't a simple question. So we're going to dive back around toward the end. We're going to see where we get. I want to dive into the science now because there is so much misinformation, confusion out there, and I think certainly riddles within enigmas. First off, what is the coronavirus and what isn't it?
So I created a presentation that I put up on YouTube last week on my private YouTube channel. And I want to be clear about why I did not post it on the general YouTube, because what I found was people were hijacking my video making it into something that it wasn't. They were wrapping other messages around it, and they were charging people money for it.
Wow.
We want to keep it free. We want to keep it honest. And I want to preserve the integrity of the message. So that's why it is on Greg Braden. It's my personal YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Michael, the reason that I created this video is because what I found initially was in our community, and I'm speaking about the New Thought community, the New Age community, spiritually oriented community, and a lot of the information-based community that they travel and offer workshops and presentations. And the thing that all of this community has in common is they are largely unplugged from the mainstream by choice. Many of them don't even have televisions anymore. We don't have a television.
We don't have television. We can watch Netflix.
Well, we can watch Netflix, but we're not plugged into any kind of CNN, or anything like that. Fox News, any of those kinds of things. So what I found is, and I'm going to invite you to think about this, that community that is not plugged in was not aware of the events that were unfolding in the world in a significant way. All of a sudden, their lives changed and there was no context. They were not clear about why they could not leave their homes, why they couldn't meet, why they had to cancel, AA meetings. Northern New Mexico is a very strong recovery community. Yep. They couldn't go and physically be present for these meetings that are so important to them every day. Couldn't go to church, couldn't go to funerals. And they, if you can imagine having that taken away and not understanding the reason why, it is a shock to the system. And people were really going through a very tough time. Everything from anger to resentment to depression and all those things. So I created a presentation. It's 49 minutes and 9 seconds running time to answer a lot of these questions from a scientific perspective. One of the first questions people asked is, what's the big deal? Isn't this just the flu? It is not the flu. It is a strain of virus that we've never seen before. The influenza has been around over 2,000 years. So our bodies have had 2,000 years to know what to do with the flu, to develop the antibodies. This virus, it's going to take a season for our bodies to do what they're designed to do, to develop the antibodies. That means we have to experience what it is that's happening, or we have to receive some kind of prophylactically, a vaccination, which doesn't exist right now. And there are mixed theories about vaccination. We can talk about this. Are they good? Are they not? How should they be administered? We can talk about that. But so there are two things happening. The vaccinations are being developed prophylactically to prevent people from getting the virus, and medications are being developed for people who already have contracted the virus. None of those exist on a large scale right now. So the question is, why can't we just take antibiotics? The reason surprised a lot of people. I assumed that it was general knowledge that a virus is not a living thing. A virus does not meet the scientific criteria for a living thing. So in the world of science, germs constitute four different classes of entities. Protozoa is considered to be a germ. Fungi are considered to be a germ. Bacteria are a germ. And all three of the things I've just mentioned all meet the scientific criteria for life. They are cells. They reproduce. They have respiration. They have metabolism. They have a finite lifespan, a beginning and an ending. Mm-hmm. Curiously, a virus meets none of these criteria. A virus is not a cell. It does not have a finite beginning and an ending. Its lifespan is dependent upon the host that it invades. It is essentially a parasite. A virus cannot reproduce on its own. It must invade another cell and hijack the DNA of that cell to perpetuate itself. So a virus meets none of these criteria. And as a scientist, I've been fascinated by viruses. They have been with us forever. So a lot of people think this is, a virus is something new. We've all heard of the genome in the human body. There are so many viruses within each of us all the time. We actually have what is called a virome. Yeah. Most viruses don't cause any problems, so you don't hear about them. But the viruses are very mysterious. I mean, just a little history. It's believed that a bacteria and virus stem from a common ancestor. Mm-hmm. And at some point in the past, the bacteria, for whatever reason, took a path where they became more complex living beings and have perpetuated in the way they have, where a virus went just the opposite way and became a very streamlined, stripped down model where all that the virus is made of is the DNA encoded in the virus and a protective shell, a lipid protein membrane around the outside. That's all it is. It's a message. It's information protected in the shell. It gave away its ability to reproduce in exchange for being more resilient and more viable in life. It's a whole fascinating history here. But what that says to us, so viruses have been around forever, but they don't meet the criteria for the biological criteria for life. That means an antibiotic is meaningless because you can't kill something that's not even alive. And it also gives us insights into how we can protect ourselves, because as long as, there are different layers of protection. The first layer is our skin. Mm-hmm. And as long as that virus doesn't penetrate the skin, it doesn't mean anything to our cells. But even when the virus, if we breathe it in or if we ingest it, through our mouths or something like that, there are 6 levels, 6 stages that a virus goes through as it invades the human body. And at any one of those 6 stages, we can intervene and stop that. Medications are being designed to do that, but Mother Nature gives us natural herbal supplements. Traditional Chinese medicine offers things that intervene as well. We can go into some specifics with that. But the virus is not alive, and it is not a hunter, and it is not stalking us. It's not out to get us. It is inert until it comes in contact with living human cells. So I just want to follow that. I'm sorry, Mike.
Woohoo! No, that's perfect. And I want to go there. I want to go there on Chinese medicine. I want to go there on what we can do. And I really want to go there actually on this incubation period, which is fascinating to me. But since we have a spiritual bent in the show, I've got to go there because I've thought about this since Biology 101. And there is a virome. There are maybe even viruses in us that are actually working with us. So the question is, do you think a virus has awareness or came here for a purpose? So in group meditations, I may have people send love to a virus because on some level, it's all one. It's all a quantum world. What are your feelings, Greg?
Well, so the virus, and I'm going to make a distinction here, the virus does not meet the biological criteria for life.
Right.
But the virus probably has a consciousness. Now, this is where I'm going to deviate from the scientific world. You'll never see this in a scientific journal. So this is my personal insight, my personal sense. Everything is conscious. A rock is conscious. A blade of grass is conscious. Yeah, everything has consciousness, but consciousness does not equal biological life.
Right.
So that's a big concept, a lot to think about there. We go to other planets, we may very possibly see viruses. This is one of the big quandaries in life. What came first, the virus or the cells, and why did they change in the life sciences? So what you're saying is, can we communicate with a virus? I believe we can communicate with anything that is conscious. Is our communication meaningful? And are we going to have a desired outcome? I think that is a question, because a virus, the way it is designed, it is inert. And what that means is it can sit on the surface and do absolutely nothing as long as its protective shell is intact. And now we know that in the air, it can linger for about 3 hours. About 3 hours in the air. Different surfaces have different porosity. Yes. So it doesn't linger as long on cardboard, but on a plastic or a stainless steel surface, they're talking about 2 or 3 days. In other words, when they say it's viable, doesn't mean it's alive. It means it's viable. It has the ability to do what its DNA is made to do. And what its DNA is made to do is when it comes in contact with a living cell, its DNA is made to hijack that cell. It will through the little protrusions on the virus. It's a spherical entity with little protrusions, and that's why it's called a corona. It looks like there's a corona around it. Those protrusions are looking for places on the surface of a cell where it can make a meaningful contact. Those are called receptors on the cell. And once that contact is made, then the DNA inside the virus is projected into the cell, and it hijacks, it becomes part of our DNA, and it uses our DNA to replicate itself. And it begins to do that until the cell can no longer hold it. The cell will then break open. The cell is destroyed. The cell is dead now, or it's destroyed. It's broken open. And now those new viruses are looking for other cells to do exactly the same thing. So your question is, can a meaningful communication break that chain of events? I don't know the answer to that. My sense is that as long as the virus is intact, it's going to follow the program that it was designed to follow. Now, here's the key. The key is us. We are made, and we are made. I'm going to use the word designed, because what we now know is that the human body is not the product of random mutations that just happened by accident over a long period of time. I've talked about that in other programs. My books talk about it. So I'll be very clear. I am a geologist by degree. Evolution is a fact. I believe in evolution for other forms of life. I've seen it in the fossil record. The theory breaks down when it comes to humans. Humans emerged relatively suddenly 200,000 years ago. Truth is, we don't know where we came from. We were fully intact, fully enabled, rather than developing these very specialized functions slowly, gradually over a long period of time.
Do you mind if I add something to it? Because I wrote the book Barefoot Running, and we're hairless. And one of the things that you discover when you run barefoot is there's something really missing here, because functionally, we should not be this way. We should not be a hairless ape unless there was something else, many somethings else in between.
Absolutely. And I mean, we could do a whole program on this. We have in the past. But the reason I'm saying this now is because we arrived 200,000 years ago. We emerged 200,000 years ago, fully intact, fully enabled. We haven't changed. Yeah. If you take our DNA today and compare it to the fossilized DNA that we can extract from our ancestors, we're called anatomically modern humans. We haven't changed. So the key is we've always had the ability to deal with the virus that we have right now. And rather than communicating with the virus, asking it to do something other than what it is made to do or what it does instinctively, I think the key is to communicate with ourselves and give ourselves everything. We already have what we need to deal with this. The question is, do we love ourselves enough to give our bodies what our bodies need to be optimum, to be at our best for times just like this?
What does that mean?
Well, this is where science, spirituality come together. It comes down to choices we make in our lifestyle. Do we love ourselves enough to give our bodies the nutrition that strengthen our immune system and honor our bodies with living materials from that nutrition rather than chemical processed something that is in a package on a store shelf that fills the space in our stomach but may not give us the nutrition that we need? Do we love ourselves enough to honor the movement that our body needs every day? We're designed to be moving beings. Movement is medicine. Movement is medicine. And the discipline of having some kind of movement every day, whether it is walking, whether if the weather's bad and you're doing floor exercises or you're doing yoga or you're doing weights or you're cycling, whatever it is, movement is key to the immune system. Do we love ourselves enough to do that? Do we love ourselves enough to honor the lifestyle choices that support life within our bodies? It's always a good choice, but now what we're finding is it is a vital choice because those are the choices that are giving us what we need in the presence of this pandemic. The only people that are susceptible to this virus bringing an end to their lives, what we're finding, the mortality rate is is higher for those who have what are called immune compromised, who are immune compromised in their lives. What does that mean? Well, immune compromised are the things we're talking about. They can be underlying physical conditions. World Health Organization put out a list that surprised some people of what it is that can compromise our immune system. Tobacco, smoking tobacco can compromise the immune system. Obesity can compromise the immune system. Diabetes can compromise the immune system. There are, of course, pre-existing conditions. Cancer, having had cancer or in the process of dealing with cancer, can compromise the immune system, as well as the remedy for the cancer, which is often chemoradiation, and we all know that can compromise the immune system. Diet, exercise, stress, lifestyle also compromise the immune system. So this is an opportunity right now, and it's an opportunity to be honest with ourselves. When you hear those things, if you're listening and you say, I could do a little bit better with diet, or I could do a little bit better with exercise, don't beat yourself up over it. But this is an opportunity to kick those choices into high gear and make life-affirming conscious choices. And one of the beauties of this amazing system, we are the owners of a highly sophisticated, technologically advanced biological system. And it responds to changes pretty quickly. And those lifestyle changes, when you kick those into high gear, it doesn't take months. In a matter of days and weeks, you can see those lifestyle changes reflected in the human body. I saw this personally. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I know many of you know Joe Dispenza and his work. We're very good friends. We teach some things are similar, where there's overlap. Some things are very different. We had dinner, about a year ago. We were having a dinner together, and we were talking about telomeres, the specialized DNA at the ends of the chromosomes that protect our DNA, our chromosomes, when the cells divide. Typically, those telomeres become shorter with age and provide less protection for the DNA. And what I know is that there are enzymes. Well, the 2009 Nobel Prize was awarded for the discovery of the enzyme that reverses the damage to the telomeres. And we all have this. We have enzymes that are designed to stop the damage, to heal the damage that's occurred, and to rebuild those telomeres. And I asked Joe, I said, the literature tells us it takes months before we see lifestyle changes reflected in those telomeres. I don't see why it should take that long. Do you? And Joe said, I don't see that either. We both agreed it may take that long if an individual follows a traditional Western lifestyle, and through consciously addressing these things. And we proved it in our programs. We would take samples from people the first day of an event, 5 days later, 4 days later at the end of an event, and we could see when those go out to the labs and they're processed and they come back, those telomeres will change within a matter of days. They'll begin that change. It's not complete, but you'll see that change begin, and it continues if we continue those changes. Diet, exercise, beliefs, the way that we think about ourselves, stress, the stressors in our bodies, all of these are factors. So I'm saying that it doesn't take a long time. And if that list that I shared, if some of those things, you're listening to this and you say, I could do some of those maybe better, I want to encourage you. When you begin, your body will respond really quickly. And if you ever needed an optimum immune system, now is the time. Now is the time. And you're made to do exactly what your body is trying to do for you right now.
Woohoo! It's interesting because to me, it really seems like this is the time. So thank you, Greg. And I want to come back to nutrition and herbs and mushrooms and things in just a minute. Yeah. It really seems like it's a time because if we've taken licks in our lifetime, if we're attracted to your energy, to my energy, then you're somewhat empathic. Means you haven't had necessarily the easiest life. You've taken your licks. And I truly believe that has all led us to be stronger during this time, to be more awake, more aware. I look at Mother Earth as having hit the red button, the full pause, and the skies are clearing, the dolphins are coming back, the birds are coming back, the fish are coming back. This is a global reboot, but as you're saying, this is actually, so I'm looking at the positives, a chance to get into our true authentic self, get our health back, become empowered, and live a different way, both locally and internally as well.
Yeah, it definitely is a reset. I don't know that that's being acknowledged right now much in the mainstream. As we mentioned, it's going to be an economic reset. And when I talk about economies, a lot of people think that means money. It may, but economies are about people. And they're about the way that people share the vital resources that they need every day: food, energy, water, medicine. There is going to be a reset that's already happening. When it comes to economy, money is part of that. Our financial system already had some very deep cracks, creating unsustainability. Those cracks are being exposed right now, and I think we're going to see changes in money, in what money means and how it's used. Too much to go into right now, but we're definitely going to see those. I think we're going to see social changes in the way that people treat one another, the way that we work together, the way that we share. So I think, and we talked about the localized economies already. So I think the reset is definitely, we're going to be a better world for this. We have the potential to be better people if we can embrace the lesson. If we didn't talk about this earlier, there is something called normalcy bias.
Yes.
That's a psychological term. Yeah. Where people, when faced with a big change, a big, sudden, unexpected change in their lives, will discount that. They will try to live life as normal in the presence of a world that's anything but normal. I'm actually experiencing it now with event producers that I work with all over the world, have a lot of energy, planning, time, money on the line for events that have been planned. Some of them, they've been on the books for 2 years. And they are attempting to continue those plans as if this has not happened. And the reality is, and there's a frustration from not being able to do that. And it's true for all of us. If we are clinging to an idea of the world that we knew 3 weeks ago, and we're trying to get back to that world, and we are unable to do that now, the inability to go back to that world is where the suffering comes from. It is where the frustration comes from. And I'm just going to say this right now, then we can go into the other things we're going to go into. Yeah. One of the things that's not being addressed in mainstream that I feel is just as important is all the logistics, all the social distancing, washing the hands, all that is vital. But the emotional impact of what is happening to us, we are a planet right now, we are a planet in grief. And people say to me, well, what are we grieving? And the answer to that question surprises a lot of people. We are grieving the loss of a way of life.
Yes. We
have had a way of life stripped from us, taken from us so suddenly. And just the way that we grieve the loss of a loved one, we are grieving the loss of a way of life. I can't do a better job than Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did when she talked about the grief cycle and the 5 stages of grief that so many of our viewers are familiar with. Quickly, the 5 stages. Denial is the first, where we have fear, we have confusion, avoidance. Anger is the second stage. We have frustration, irritation, anxiety. Depression is a third stage, where we feel overwhelmed, helpless, sometimes hostile, and we want to run. Those are happening right now. And if you don't know why you're feeling what you're feeling, there's no context, and it seems hopeless. That's why I'm offering Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did such a beautiful job. If you can acknowledge that you are in grief, that you have lost a way of life, it doesn't have to be a big alligator tears sobbing experience, although it may, but simply saying, I've lost something that was important to me in the past. I've lost the ability to gather with my friends temporarily, to go to concerts, to go to conferences, to go to AA meetings, go to Al-Anon meetings, to go and do all the things I used to do. I lost it and I miss it. Just that acknowledgement helps to move beyond the denial. That's important. Anger, depression, and then we go into what's called the bargaining. And I think some people are in these simultaneously. They're angry and depressed, and they're bargaining, where we're trying to give meaning to what it is that's happening. And that ultimately leads to the acceptance, where we explore what's possible. We explore the options. We will all go through these 5 stages. You cannot avoid that. The question is, do we go through them in a healthy way, number one? And number two, how much time does it take? You can compress the time it takes to go through these by acknowledging and embracing where you are, or you can drag it out for a very long period of time by denying that any of this is ever happening or by blaming. We're getting emails, for example, Michael. I had an email recently from someone who said, and this happened to be a female, who said that she refused to have an authoritarian regime tell her how to live her life. I get that totally. And I know where that's coming from. And what I'm saying is that thinking is not useful right now, because regardless of what you believe is happening or how it came about, we're in it and we've got to get through it. And we've got to get through it together, and we've got to help other people, and we've got to do it in a healthy way to transcend where we are. Down the road, we will get through this, and we're going to get through it together, and it's going to be in the rearview mirror. And when it is, we can go back and look at all the other things that people want to look about, and talk about the origins and all these other things. It's not useful now. Right now, we've got to get through this, and I think we're doing a good job. And I think that's why the information is so important, because without the information, without the context, it's just like people are being told what to do from left and right, and all these things are changing, but there's no structure. So for me, the structure gives meaning, and you can see a flow and a process, and you can see an end. You can see an outcome.
Thank you. And I mean, denial is one of the big pieces there, because it's got particularly millennials and stuff coming together going, no, this isn't, we will be fine. But this is a time where we get to come together by following some basic rules. So I'm wondering if you can share with us what you would say are some best practices right now, and then some best practices on nutrition and things like Chinese herbs, mushrooms. But before we do that, the question that bothers me, that most people have not addressed, is this seems to be an exceptionally slow incubating virus, which is catching us off guard, because we only do well if, somebody had a cold, I stay away from them, which actually coughing or sneezing and sniffly nose may not be the case. But this is insidious because it may sit in us for so long.
Containment would be early on, when there were very few cases, to do just that, contain and isolate them. We know this is successful. It happened a few years ago with Ebola, another horrid virus. One man was tested positive in the state of Texas with Ebola. He was immediately quarantined, put in an isolation unit, a special unit made for this, and treated until he recovered, and that virus was never spread in the country. Containment can work early on. We missed that window for a number of different reasons about information, where it is, how it travels, everything. That is past. We can no longer contain this. Yeah. The next is called mitigation, where we acknowledge this virus is going to sweep through our population and we can't stop it. That's where we are right now. It's going to sweep through the population. The key is, how does it do that? If it sweeps all at once, and I know a lot of people have seen this graph, the administration is really pushed this graph. If it sweeps all at once, there's a big spike in the number of cases. Most people who have a relatively healthy immune system are not going to need medical care. They're going to get through. We're going to get through this if you have a relatively healthy immune system. However, those who are immune compromised are going to need medical care to survive. Some of them to survive, because this is a virus that targets the respiratory system, the lungs, that make it hard to breathe. So if all of a sudden we have so many people that are needing that critical care all at once, our medical system isn't set up to take care of that. So we're short on staff, we're short on equipment, and you're hearing a lot about that. So the idea is, by social isolation, what we're saying is, by not being in contact with one another, we're slowing the spread, the transmission, so that we don't overwhelm that medical system. And when our social isolation is, when we are no longer doing that, that's the big question: what happens? Well, in an ideal world, Michael, in a perfect scenario, what would happen is that through social isolation, the virus would burn itself out. It would find no more hosts to invade, so it cannot perpetuate itself. In an ideal situation, we all know that that's not going to happen. This is not an ideal situation. People aren't following the social isolation. So realistically, whenever the ban is lifted and we begin commingling again, the virus will continue to spread. Two things. Number one, the hope is, and the plan is that it will not be that big spike. It will be leveled off. So the healthcare system can really help the people that are going to need it, keeping in mind most people will not need that critical, urgent care. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, enough of us will have developed an immunity, either because we have had the virus and have healed, or because some people may have a natural immunity, that's a possibility that's being explored, or because they are fast-tracking the medications that will give us the immunity, either through vaccination or through the medications to mitigate what's already in the body. So it's still going to sweep through our population, but by the social distancing, we are regulating how quickly that happens and helping those who are most vulnerable.
Do you think this is a long-term thing, like a Spanish flu, where we could have multiple spikes before we come out the other side?
Okay, this is a new virus, and this is where the unknowns are. There's so many things that are not known. And again, I'm a scientist. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm studying the work that the epidemiologists are putting out. So I made some notes so I can be absolutely accurate and most up to date. What we know right now is the incubation period is part of the problem. It can be as brief as 2 days. It means you can show symptoms 2 days after you're infected. It can be as long as 14 days. The average is about 5.1 days, and that average is with a 97% confidence interval. So they're pretty certain. By 5.1 days is when the symptoms begin to appear. Here's the problem. Between the time you are infected and when those symptoms appear, you don't know you have the virus.
Yeah.
So you might be going to the grocery store, you might be hanging out with your friends and doing all the other things, infecting them at the same time and not even knowing it. And you may not even have the symptoms. If you've got a relatively healthy immune system, some people, they may feel a little off for a day or two, maybe a low-grade fever, maybe no fever at all. Maybe a little shortness of breath, maybe not. This happens to be allergy season here in northern New Mexico. Juniper pollen is so thick, there are clouds of it when the wind blows, and it's like dust.
Yes.
You can see on the sidewalks, and people are having respiratory issues. They don't know if their respiratory issues are now from the juniper, from COVID-19.
Yeah.
So, but here's where it gets really interesting, is even after someone heals, even after they survive and they are no longer showing the symptoms, they can still infect others for up to 14 days after they stop showing the symptoms.
Wow.
So what that means, all in all, is a little over 30, they're saying about 32 to 37 days that we need to be isolated to not only be sure that we don't have it, but to make sure that we're not infecting others. So when the bans are lifted, we will probably see some kind of an upsurge in some populations, maybe not in others. Another question is, can we reinfect ourselves? The answer is we don't know the answer. The indications are probably not. And let me tell you why. This is really interesting. From the original strain of the virus, there appear to be two strains that are active right now. The original is called the S strain. The derivative of that, the mutation, is called the L strain. The L strain is a little bit more aggressive, but for all intents and purposes, to your body, it means the same thing. If there is any good news from this virus, one of the piece of good news is that it appears it is not mutating very much. That's good news because it means, number one, whatever medicines are made are probably going to be effective because the strain they were made for is going to be in place. Number two, it means that once an individual has created the antibodies for that virus, if the virus comes back because it hasn't mutated very much, the body knows what to do and you will have natural immunity. So the thinking is probably we're not going to be reinfecting ourselves.
Yeah.
And probably whatever medications are developed are going to be effective because the virus is not mutating the way, like influenza, for example. Influenza, you hear a new strain,
yeah.
Multiple strains per year. So you take the flu vaccine, but it may not be effective because now the strain that you have is not the strain the vaccine was made for. That doesn't appear to be happening with this virus. So I think that is an inkling of good news as well. Another question that comes up is, can we give it to our pets? Or can our pets give it to us? As a scientist, where I'll say the scientific literature does not show any indication that you can give COVID-19 to your dogs or your cats. These are the domestic animals they're watching right now. Or that you can get it from your dogs and cats as a carrier. However, the recommendations from the World Health Organization and CDC are still, if you are infected, maybe not have as much intimate contact. Don't get your cat's face right in your face, or wash your hands before you interact with your pet, just like you would, with anything else. But the indications are right now is that it is not being passed in that way.
Then on boosting our immune system with what little time we have left, supplements, different things from the nutritional point of view, mushrooms, Chinese herbs, some suggestions.
When we talk about our immune system, first of all, what a lot of the medical doctors, and this is where I'm going to take exception with what a lot of medical doctors are saying, because they are not oriented. There are exceptions, but in general, they're not oriented to thinking that supplements and supplementation is a good thing. I've had a lot of medical doctors tell me, you're throwing your money away on the supplements because, they'll pass through your body or you pee them out and they're not even really helping you. If you've got high quality therapeutic dosages of standardized supplements, I believe personally, and I've experienced, I think they're beneficial, because the sad reality is that our soils are so depleted, even the most organic vegan diet is not going to give you the nutrients you need for your body to be at its best. So I think supplements are necessary to be at our best in this day and age, right now anyway. Maybe that will change, but right now. So all of the supplements, the whole array of B complex is important, because so many of our cellular factors are hinge on that B complex. Vitamin C is a very powerful antioxidant, and it provides so many other functions in our bodies. Yeah. The issue is that the forms of vitamin C that we typically see, our bodies don't tolerate well. Ascorbic acid, rose hips, for example, those are the inexpensive kinds of vitamin C. They're better than nothing. If that's what you've got, you can take them, and they're going to help. However, your body probably can't sustain a high dosage of vitamin C in that form. There's another form of vitamin C that is called ascorbate base. It's not ascorbic acid, ascorbate based. Yeah. This is really interesting, because the human body is we're one of the few mammals that do not produce our own vitamin C. The exception, ladies, you're going to love this, if you have ever conceived a child in your womb, even if you didn't go full term and give birth.
Ooh, Jessica's going to love this.
Yeah, if you've ever conceived a child, you began creating vitamin C in your body for the duration of your pregnancy, which tells us that at one time we probably had the ability. We've lost it. Women will have it for themselves and their child until the child is born, and then they stop producing the vitamin C again. What the ascorbate-based C does is it gives our bodies what our bodies need to create that vitamin C. And we can do it in very high doses, 2,000-3,000 milligrams a day with typically no problems. I don't like to talk about brands a lot, but I want to be useful here. There are some brands. There's a packet that is called Emergen C. A lot of people are familiar with. EMERENG, and then the capital letter C. There's another one by Trace Minerals. These are ascorbates that work together to create the vitamin C in our bodies. Emergen C is about 1,000 milligrams per packet. trace minerals, 12 milligrams per packet. Yeah. So we can tolerate higher doses of those. Maybe not every day, but if you want to do it, in special times like this. I want to talk about the mushrooms because there is a lot of peer-reviewed scientific literature on mushrooms and what's called TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. Mm-hmm. And this is, I'm going to go back to the early part of our conversation. The COVID-19, it's a coronavirus, mm-hmm. spherical, covered with these protrusions. Those protrusions are key in allowing that virus to dock onto the cell, to find the receptors on a human cell. There are, Mother Nature gives us herbs and supplements that will either blunt those protrusions, yep. or they will disable the proteins so that even though the virus, it can come in contact with the cell, but it has no way to communicate with the cell, so we're not infected. Some of the mushrooms that have peer-reviewed, scientifically documented antiviral properties. So this isn't anecdotal information. This isn't just hearsay. That are being studied right now. One of those is a mushroom called agarikon. Mm-hmm. Agarikon mushroom, you don't hear as much, but it is an antiviral. It has antiviral properties for this reason, blunting those protrusions and interfering with the proteins so that virus can't connect to the cell. Turkey tail is another mushroom that's been studied extensively. These are the common names I'm giving, not the scientific names. If you go online, because you can't go to the grocery store probably right now, but if you go online, you can find them, or the herbal store, or some grocery stores will have them. Reishi mushrooms is another one that has both antibacterial as well as antiviral properties. Most of these mushrooms are also anti-inflammatory. So, you're getting two or three purposes fulfilled, 3 for 1, antimicrobial, or antibacterial, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory. Mushrooms, some of those are not all mushrooms have these properties. So you have to look at what are called medicinal mushrooms. Those mushrooms are often incorporated into traditional Chinese medicine, as well as other compounds. There's a compound called yin chow that many people are very familiar with. It is a complex compound of a lot of flowers and pollens that are put together in a very precise way. They have antiviral properties. So I've done yin chow for years when I travel on airplanes and things like that. Just I don't feel sick. It's just prophylactically, so it's like a protection. Strengthens the immune system as well as all the other things. Sleep is a very important thing. I left out the factor of sleep. So it's important to do what you need to do to get that good sleep as well. So Mother Nature gives us ways to honor ourselves and to honor our immune system that's designed for times just like this, to do exactly what we need our bodies to do. So as we embrace those mechanisms and incorporate them into our lifestyles, and not just today because it's a special time because we have a pandemic, but to make it a part of your everyday life. The supplements and the kinds of food that really give life to our bodies. The closer you can get your food to its raw form, the more nutrition you're going to have. And I think we all sense that intuitively. I'm hesitating here in the interest of time, but I'm just going to say this. Yeah. I'm a student of ancient cultures, ancient traditions, ancient texts. And there was a society that existed about 500 years before the time of Jesus. They are called the Essenes, Essenes. They did not call themselves Essenes, but others did. But the Egyptians called them Therapeutae because the Essenes knew how to heal and they knew what it took to optimize the human body. And the master, Jesus of Nazareth, was raised in the Essene traditions, and he understood these principles. So in some of the texts that were recovered in the 20th century, of his writings and his teachings that were edited in the 4th century, they were edited and removed from the biblical canon. the students asked the master. So I'm going to talk about Jesus not as a religious icon in any way, but as a learned student of therapeutic traditions 2,000 years ago. The students asked, Master, what is it that we need to eat so that we can heal ourselves? And the answer that he gave them, I think, is it ancient? Yes. Is it obsolete? Absolutely not. It's just as apropos today. And what he said the things that steal the life from your food will also steal the life from your body. And the things that give life to your food will also give life to your body. Therefore, eat the things that give life to your food. And that principle is such a powerful principle. I think about it all the time. When we consume the foods that have been reduced chemically or through cooking into something less than they were in their raw state, we're not getting that full nutritional component. We know that intuitively. So maybe this is a time to put a little bit more of that raw food in the diet. Eat broccoli. Broccoli will save your life. I've eaten it since I was a kid. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts, those kinds of things. The grains that have been demonized by pop culture and pop fad diets actually are a good part of this. Whole grain rice, whole grain oats. Oats are a magical food, high in a lot of not cooked oats. So I'm saying whole. You can cook them, but raw oats are very, very powerful. Rolled oats is what I'm saying. Raw rolled oats. Yeah, very, very powerful in our diet for a lot of reasons. So those are the kind of things that I can mention right now.
Thank you. It seems like we're in a living system, and this system is in a process of autocorrect. We can autocorrect our own health, stress, sleep, nutrition, and Mother Earth is a living system correcting herself, and the coronavirus is actually assisting in our correction. What do you think?
I think the coronavirus can do that. I don't think it's necessarily its purpose. I think it's up to us to recognize the opportunities. We have, for the first time, something we are facing as a planet. There's no them and us. We're in this together. For the first time, we have the opportunity for the leaders of the nations of the earth to come together and look at one another eye to eye about something more than trade, more than economics, more than defense, more than terrorism. We need one another. And I think if our leaders can see one another as humans with families rather than as technology with military might behind them, if they can embrace the humanness in one another, and I'm actually seeing this happen between nations that often are at odds with one another, if we can continue this even when the pandemic passes, then we will have embraced the opportunity. I don't think it's the purpose of the virus, but I think it is an opportunity that we are presented with. And I think it had to happen at some point because of the world we've created. We have globalized the planet. So what it means is whatever happens for one is going to happen for all. We don't live isolated nations the way we did 100 years ago. So this had to happen at some point on some level, maybe not the coronavirus, but some event that would influence the entire planet to the degree that we had to stop and look at it because everything else grinds to a halt. And that's precisely what we're seeing now. So I hope individually as well as collectively, we can recognize the opportunity that lies before us and embrace that opportunity in a healthy way. And I am encouraged. I'm seeing that happening right now. And I want to thank you, as we did in the beginning. Programs like this are bringing people together to help us to recognize where we are in the process, that we are in grief and that we are going through these stages. And there is an opportunity there for all of us. And people watching this are probably people that aren't watching mainstream television. So that's why this is important, to be able to share this kind of information. And I'm also seeing an embrace of science. Science is being demonized in recent years. Science can only serve us if we keep it honest. And science has been hijacked and cherry-picked for data that supports very specific agendas. And I'm seeing a movement back to respect and embrace the science. I think we're going to see, I have some predictions. I predict we'll see a lot of young people that want to become scientists biologists, epidemiologists. I think it's inspiring a lot of young people. I think we will probably see a baby boom around 9 months from now. We've seen this in the past. We saw a baby boom after 9/11 when people were confined and surprised and looking for comfort. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I think we're all going to be better for it, and I think we're going to have a better world. And I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm going to close with a thought. I was hesitating, but I'm just going to say it because it's very present with me. When I was a kid in a very dysfunctional and unhealthy alcoholic family, my father left, and my mother gave me a book that became a cornerstone in my life by a man named Khalil Gibran. The book was called The Prophet. And it is a philosophical book, very short chapters, deep insights into things that are important in our lives. And he wrote a chapter on work that I read when I was 10 years old. And what he said is, work is love made visible. And that inspired me throughout my life. I have a very strong work ethic. And when I say yes to do something, I give it over 100%. And what I know is that is my love made visible because I've said yes to doing something. I'm going to put my love into that in all the ways I know how. It takes work to change the way we live. It takes work to change the way we think. And what we're asking ourselves is, do we love ourselves enough to put the energy into those changes? I believe we do. And I believe that is what is emerging from the pandemic, the coronavirus that we're seeing right now. So I'm going to invite all of our viewers, if they haven't, to ask themselves this question: do I love myself enough to give myself, to put the work into giving myself what I need to be at my best every day? And if your answer is yes, if you do those things, the virus is nothing to fear, and we will all get through this together. So thank you, Michael, for the opportunity to share that and to be with you today.
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Greg. And you've gone over and above beyond the Call of Duty. Let me have your URL one more time so that I can send people and they can check out that 49-minute video as well. Where do you want to send them, Greg?
Well, the video itself is on my YouTube channel. If you go to the Greg Braden YouTube channel, it's there. Or on my website, if you go to gregbraden.com, GregBraden.com, and you go to, there's a little logo, a little icon in the upper right-hand corner. There's one for Facebook, one for Twitter, one for Instagram. There's one for YouTube. If you click that YouTube, it'll take you right to that YouTube.
So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, take this opportunity to begin returning to your perfect health today, and shine bright. Woohoo! All my love, Greg. All my love. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank your wife behind the scenes. I don't see her, but I know she's there.
She is.
All right. Love you guys. Take care. Thanks.
If you like this video, then you're a light worker, you're a light warrior, and we need your love and light. We need to crank it up to the max. That's why we're offering boot camps. You can check them out down below. Monday through Friday events, 1 hour a day, almost free, to help you crank your light up to the max, get you in the most positive place possible, boost your immune system to the max, and help you to help the world to shine bright. We're also offering YouTube live events every Saturday and Sunday during this time to help you overcome fear, overcome worry, overcome stress, and again, boost up your immune system. These tapping events, these boot camps, all involve group meditations where we come together, set group intention, help you help yourself, help your family, and help the entire world. You're a light worker. Your time is now, so come join us. Click below for these extra special events. Wow, did I just have one of the most powerful, inspiring, informative interviews with Greg Braden. To check out more incredible interviews, click here. Subscribe below. Click on that bell icon to be notified of all upcoming shows and premieres. Leave your comments below, huge thumbs up, and most of all, join us for our upcoming boot camps. Click on the link below to find out. Love you guys so much. Shine bright. Woohoo!